Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Bully Hedron Cast episode 127. I'm Steve Tudor.
Hi, I'm Andy Lewis.
And I'm Rory Summers. No Sid today.
No Sid
today.
No.
Sid's giving it full builder's crack with a plumber.
We almost didn't have a Steve as well, did you know, Andy?
Did we not?
No, while just before 7:30 when we start recording, I'm sat here just waiting for time to jump onto the Zoom, and then my Steam notifies me that Wahathmadenga is now playing Tainted Grail.
Is he now?
So right,
Really?
so 5 minutes before we start recording, Steve's playing Tainted Grail. I was like, he does know we're recording, doesn't he?
This was right. I'm going to be honest to you and the listener. I've not played any games.
Listener, just one listener.
One listener. I have not played any board games since we last recorded. In fact, it feels like I've only just got out the last episode out the editing thing and uploaded it. So I suddenly opened up Steam thinking, crap, is there anything I can play that's in my Steam library that would make me sound knowledgeable, and then got distracted by Tainted Grail. Which I'd never actually properly played before because I thought it looked interesting, and I was quite disappointed.
I feel the same way, Mr. Tudor, because I got it basically when I went, down the Tainted Grail rabbit hole. And I thought, it's on Steam.
Yeah, I thought you guys loved Tainted Grail.
We do, but that's different. That's the board
Yes.
game, and it's very different mechanics, whereas the video game, the one that's on it at the moment, is kind of shit.
Oh.
Have you played Slay the Spire? God, that was a tongue twister, wasn't it?
I have
No,
not.
I've not. We've talked about Slay the Spire, though, haven't we?
Yeah, Slay the Spire. Well, Slay the Spire is a video game, really good, and they made a board game version of it because effectively it's a deck builder. It's a deck building game where you fight against another beastie, and you have cards that do attack and cards that do defense. And it's deck building because you can tweak it between fights. And it's like a roguelike. So basically, every time you play, you start right from the beginning, and things are slightly different, randomized every time you play. Unlock different characters, unlock different treasures and abilities, blah, blah, blah. Really, really good. Actually, highly recommend it.
Okay.
Tainted Grail is a complete rip-off of this formula.
Oh.
The combat is almost exactly the same. Just with a very liberal dose of grimdark.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
It's not difficult, but it's not difficult mechanically. I got to a certain point and just kept getting my arse kicked by large gribblies and gave up because I'm clearly rubbish at that kind of thing.
So in short, you weren't really skiving, Steve. You were researching.
No, I was trying to do some homework, if anything, yeah.
Homework,
Didn't
5
work
minutes
out.
before class.
Yeah, exactly. Did anyone notice that there's actually going to be a Fall of Avalon Tainted Grail video game coming out?
I knew that.
I don't know what those words mean.
Right, so Tainted Grail is a board game, as we've discussed.
Right, the actual board game, Tainted Grail.
Actual board game,
Yeah,
and the actual
okay.
board game is called Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon.
Right.
Right. So they released this video game, which we've been talking about, which I think is called Tainted Grail Conquest.
Something like that.
Something like that. So they announced that they were actually going to do a Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon video game. So of
this
course,
is a video game based on the board game that you guys love.
Yes.
Well,
Kind of, you think,
Right,
maybe.
okay. That,
Possibly.
that should have been a simple answer, but okay.
that should have been a simple answer, but they released the trailer for it a month ago. It looks nothing like the board game. It looks absolutely nothing like the board game. It looks like someone has reskinned Skyrim.
Oh.
So it's first person.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know quite what's going on there.
That's interesting.
Have they made it? Is it? When you say reskin Skyrim, have they made it more brown? Or
No,
is
no,
it
it's very
that-
brown.
Oh right, it's very still very brown. Okay.
Yeah,
Of
it's not
course,
reskinned that much.
I was going to say it's going to be a modern graphics engine, which means mostly brown.
Mostly.
That was 2010, Andy. That joke's now 13 years old.
Who cares? It's still true.
But yes, it is mostly brown.
Okay, fair enough. Mostly
See? With a smattering of blue.
I'm watching the video now. There's no blue. It's just shades of brown. Just shades of brown.
Be perfect for my dog eyes then. Shades of brown.
So I'm intrigued by this trailer, but it's still not what I was expecting. I was actually expecting a video game adaptation of the board game.
Yes, like Gloomhaven, basically.
Yeah, like Gloomhaven.
Yeah,
But
that's
this
what I was
isn't.
expecting.
There's something completely different. So
They have subverted our expectations. For the better or not, we shall find out.
we shall find out. I mean, has anyone played the Nemesis video game?
Yes. Yes, that surprised you, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And do you have an opinion on this game that you might like to share with our dear listener?
Yes, I do. It's freaking hard.
Is it?
Yeah, it's actually very good. I don't know if you've ever played Alien. What's the sneaky bollocks run around Alien game that was out a few years
Alien
ago?
Isolation.
That's the chap. It's a little bit like that, or a little. It's kind of like a cross between Alien Isolation and System Shock 2.
Oh my God, you're saying all the right words right now.
Oh, I know.
I don't know what any of those words mean.
Honestly, honestly, this.
The last time I played an Alien video game, right, was Alien versus Predator on the Jaguar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you actually saw a Jaguar.
Yeah, I saw it. It was bloody fantastic on the Jaguar. But yeah.
They're probably those things are probably more rare than the real things in the forest.
But anyway, that's my knowledge of video games, and especially Alien video games.
Well, to go down a massive rabbit hole, considering we're a
Sorry,
board game
listeners.
podcast. No, it's all right.
Steve shaking
It
his
won't
head.
be that big.
It's tangentially board game related. It's fine.
It's cool. Alien Isolation is probably the most recent Alien-based video game, and it is a stealth sort of sneak 'em up game, and it is set just after the first film. So you play as Ripley's daughter, goes to investigate this communications issue, and ends up finding that the place is basically been taken over by strange androids and an alien. And it is extremely atmospheric and very, very good fun.
Bloody terrifying.
Yes, it is. When that alien turns up, you shite yourself.
And I am absolutely awful at it.
Yep.
I've played loads of stealth games. I love stealth games. I just cannot play Alien Isolation. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but cannot do it. There hasn't been another Alien game since, which is Alien Fireteam.
Ah, okay.
Which is like a Left 4 Dead kind of game where you just shoots hordes of aliens, which, bringing it back to tabletop games, is set after the events of the Free League RPG.
Oh, they've tied it in. Nice.
They've actually tied it in. It actually references things that happened in the cinematic scenarios.
Ooh. So things like...
in the Colonial Marines book, sorry, it references the Colonial Marines book.
Nice.
It's set after that, yeah.
You're saying all the right words to me. This is good.
I've got that game. Yeah, I got it on the PlayStation. It's quite basic. It's fun, but it's basically just shoot hordes of aliens. It's just waves and waves of aliens coming at you and trying to survive. It's not a particularly deep game, but it is quite fun.
Okay. And System Shock 2 is a very old game. That was late 90s, maybe early 2000s. Made by the same people who did the original Thief games, not the 2014 abomination. And that was a proper stealth 'em up. It was one of the very first stealth 'em ups, if I remember rightly. But System Shock 2 was obviously the sequel to System Shock. See, that's the kind of research that makes me the hard-hitting games reviewer that I am.
Undeniable fact.
Undeniable fact. System Shock 2 is the sequel to System Shock. And it is another kind of stealth sci-fi sort of go around, sort of fix them up, make sure you can fix the door to get to the next part of the game. There's a little bit of a kind of, I'm not going to say RPG, but kind of adventure-y leveling up type of thing associated with it. So it's kind of, back to Nemesis, smash those two things together, and that's pretty much what you've got in the Nemesis computer game. And it's pretty good.
That actually sounds really good.
He's very good. I've only played about half an hour of it so far, so take this with a pinch of salt. But I've had the shit scared out of me, and it has absolutely the right atmosphere. It's terrifying. So it's very good. It's also very hard, because I opened the door and got eaten by a gribbly. And you know the sort of little crawly gribblies you get in Nemesis? Not the big ones, the little ones that crawl along the floor. Not the face huggers, the ones that's kind of grown a bit, but hasn't got any legs. Yeah. One of them jumped out at me and ate me.
Okay.
Solid start.
Thumbs up for Nemesis, the video game.
Yes, well worth playing, I think. I think there's two, if I remember rightly.
Oh, God, there is. There's Nemesis Lockdown and Nemesis Distress.
That's the one. I have Nemesis Distress.
Right, okay. Which, yeah, you're right. It's like first-person shooter kind of view.
Yes.
And then Nemesis Lockdown looks like a completely different game again. What are Awakened Realms doing? This is intriguing. They've both been added to my Steam wish list, so no doubt I will get an email later in some later date going, it's reduced, buy it now.
Right. No, I've not played Lockdown, but according to Steam, I have played Nemesis Distress for 9 minutes. There you go.
full in-depth review there. Then.
Yes, but I did enjoy those 9 minutes. So there you go. Anyway, back to our usual broadcast.
Yeah, can I just take a moment to have a little board gaming brag, actually? Less than a year ago, right, I mentioned in the podcast that I went and bought my Blood Bowl team from my local board game shop. And as of today, I finished painting it. I finished painting an entire team in less than a year. And my Yeti, which is my big guy character, I got him for my birthday in December. That's 3 months. 3 months it's taken me to paint a whole miniature. It's done.
That's quite impressive.
Yeah. I still haven't ever actually played a game of Blood Bowl. And it was released in 2016. But now I have 2 fully painted teams.
Nice, so you're raring to go. Well done. I have seen them. They look bloody good, man.
Yeah, I'm going to be putting them on. I'm going to share them on the socials shortly. But yeah, I since we did the troll, when we did the troll painting competition, and then I knew I wanted the Yeti, and Forge World did this fantastic model, which was really nice. So I reached out to Andy, and he pointed me towards, was it Sinistro? It's not the bad guy from Green Lantern. It's Sinistro. And I followed his Wampa guide to do the fur, and it's come out quite nicely. But I've really enjoyed doing it. I even had added highlights to his eyes.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, I'm actually just
showing off.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. Your new non-metallic metals that you've been doing recently are really nice. I don't want to try it.
Really
I'm just gonna get bolt gun metal and do that, and then with a highlight.
Do you know how long it took me to do that little tiny base thing? The second one, an hour and a half, just to do a little. Yeah, I know it takes ages. It's all glazing. It takes ages. Don't do it. Just stick to metallics.
No, I don't think I'm like glazing.
Do you want to know Steve's universal cock-up of the week?
Oh, go! Oh, yes, please.
It's a weekly thing.
Only if we do this every
thing,
episode.
Okay, I've got to try and think of a cock-up every episode. It won't be hard. I'm going to wave a miniature in front of you. This is, for the listeners at home that can't see this, it's the Screaming Antelope from Tainted, not Tainted Grail, what the hell?
Kingdom Death Monster.
Kingdom Death Monster, yes. And you may be able to see...
It's very shiny.
It's very shiny, yes. That's because I'm a moron and didn't look which pot of primer I picked up when I put it in the airbrush. And it ends up I've painted it with gloss primer, which I didn't even know was a thing, but apparently I own.
Why would you have a gloss primer?
What? Yes.
Seconded. Why is that a thing?
I've looked into this, and apparently, because you just reminded me, it's for metallics. It's really good for painting metallics because then you paint silver on top of it and you have a gloss. You have a gloss underneath, which means you can see the highlights really well for when you're sketching your colours. And number 2, it keeps everything nice and shiny for when you put your shiny metallics on top.
Fair enough. So now I feel silly for asking the question about why you'd have a gloss primer.
I've learned something there.
But your Screaming Antelope should not be done in a gloss primer. So I do not know what I do with this. Do I repaint it? Do I just put some matte varnish on it? Or just say, screw it, I'm going to paint over it anyway. So
that'll be fine. Well, all it'll do, it'll have a lovely shiny coat.
Well, yeah.
There you go. A healthy coat.
A healthy Screaming Antelope's coat, yes.
Rory,
yes.
I have a question for you.
Oh, but I like this.
You
no, actually, no, I don't like that.
Nobody likes it when I start asking questions. And according to this, you did a review of Libertalia. I thought you'd already talked about it. Or am I going mad?
No, I remember this now. This was a few weeks ago.
Right. I've slept since then. That's why I've forgotten.
So a few weeks ago at my games club, I was at a bit of a loss at what to play. And someone was like, Rory, would you like to play Libertalia? And I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I think Andy's got this. And we haven't covered it on the podcast. So I'll sit down and I'll play Libertalia, and we can talk about it on an upcoming podcast. I was like, that's just brilliant. Yeah, playing a game for the content on the podcast.
Dedicated souls we are.
Yeah, dedicated souls. I didn't choose something I wanted to play. I chose something that we could talk about. Sat down, played the game. The following morning, I woke up and I was like, hang on, we've already done this. So I went back to it, and it was an episode that I wasn't on, but I do the artwork still. So I found that as episode like 117, Andy discusses Libertalia, which, okay, I played it. That's not the end of the world. We don't need to talk about it on the podcast, despite the fact that we now are. But it is a rubbish game. That's an hour and a half of my life that I spent playing that game purely for the podcast, that if I'd have just remembered what you said, I would have dodged that bullet. But no.
You see, Andy is usually correct, despite what Mr. Tudor wrote this afternoon in some blurb for the UK Games Expo, I might add.
Yeah.
But it is fucking terrible, isn't it?
I threw myself on that cardboard sword, sacrificed. I could have played any other game, any of the new stuff that I had. And no, I thought, no, I'll play something for the podcast. And it's not
very good.
It is. I saw, we got like 2/3 of the way through. We did like, what, two quests? And I was like, oh,
yeah,
right, okay, brilliant. So who's won then? And then Tim, who was running the game, turned around and goes, no, we've got one more quest to go. I was like, oh, really? We've only done 2/3 of the game.
Oh, no, it takes ages. It's a lot longer than it should be.
Yeah, I think it falls into that pitfall that I think a lot of deck builders do, is that you've got to know the cards in the deck. And when you know the relationships and how they kind of synergize together, but it means that somebody who's played the game before and has that knowledge is just going to trounce anybody else. I mean, second quest, second expedition, I managed to rake in 50 gold. So I'm like, that's pretty bloody good, 50 gold. That's all right. It's good.
Usually what I get for the entire game.
Yeah. I came fourth. And I was no. So Libertalia, played it for the sake of the podcast. Turns out, didn't need to. Wasted my time. I've now played it. I wish I hadn't. It's it. It's done now.
So what have we learned? Listen to Andy. That's what you've learned.
Remember, the problem is, Andy, is that you say an awful lot. So remembering it all is difficult.
I like to give people a rounded opinion of the game, to give them the full story, which I then summarise in 3 words. Something is usually either really good or shit. Mostly shit.
Libertalia, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
I am intrigued now, though.
Really?
Because 2 of you have said this is no good. I mean, Andy's Andy. We know he's hyperbole, but Rory, for you to say this game is bad as well. But
I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just uninteresting.
But this is what gets me, is this is a reprint that Stonemaier took from another publisher. So this is the second version, the second time this game's come out. So somebody somewhere thinks this is a really good game. Not just like a good game, but really good.
Lots of people like Terribly Boring Farce as well, Steve.
That's true.
Whilst we don't hate it, we don't see why it's so good. So, there's a lot of people who out there who are wrong.
Now, if everyone played Devil's Advocate, it is an interesting-ish deck builder in the way you've got this. You have these cards and they stay, and some of them stay, some of them go, and then you burn them, and that in itself is quite interesting. The artwork's really cutesy, which isn't for me, but it makes it good for entry level. Getting into the board game, I think it's pirates, which is an interesting theme. It's got fantastic components. It's got cutesy art, really simple rule set, and it's a good introduction to deck builders. But I would rather play something else than this. I mean, deck builders aren't really a big thing for me anyway. But if I was going to play a deck builder, I wouldn't play this. If I wanted to play a pirate game, I can't think of any situation where I'd want to play Libertalia again, actually. It's done now. I saw everything within the first 2 expeditions. I didn't need that third to know that I'd lost, to see anything new in the game, to have any twists or turns, to have any drama. It was just done.
Andy and Rory in agreement. Shocker.
Can you talk about a game that you did enjoy?
No.
Let's have some positive. Right, okay then. Okay.
Right, well, in that case, I'm not going to talk about Desolated until another podcast, because we had some good news.
One game I have played recently that I really, really enjoyed, and I told you guys after we recorded last episode, and unfortunately Sid's not here because I know he was dead keen, but I recently played 10 Candles, the RPG.
Ooh.
And it was really, really good. It was really, really good. So 10 Candles. It was a real departure for me. I haven't done a lot of games mastering. I've only done it for a little while for a few really small groups of close friends, and and it's only ever been Dungeons and Dragons. Whereas 10 Candles is a huge step away from that. It is far, far more narrative based. It's more similar to the Apocalypse system, but even more narrative in the fact there are no stats in this at all. Dice are used, but they're really just used there as to add a level of randomness to the story. So the principle is that you've got 10 tea-light candles, and it's a prepless game. So my prep was to come up with some names of pubs, schools, and some NPCs that they might meet, and street names. And the idea of the game is that something has blotted out the sun. The sun has just gone. The whole Earth is cast into eternal night. There are no satellites. Whatever it's done has just knocked out all the satellites. There's no internet. There's no GPS. We've lost international communications are down. Power plants are then churning out loads of electricity because everybody's got all the lights on all the time, and they start going on the blink after a few days because there's that much drain on the grid. And then a few days after the sun goes out, they, with a capital T, appear. No one knows anything about them except the fact that they want to destroy us and that they don't like the light. That's your premise for the game. Then I light 3 candles, and I start handing out index cards and ask you to write down a virtue and a vice. And then I ask you to come up with a name for your character and what do you look like, what do you do. Then you come up with like your moment of hope that you're looking for, and then I forget what they call it now. It's gone. Brain fart. There's one more card. Anyway, you end up with these 4 index cards with 4 key things written on them. And throughout the game, you have the opportunity to burn these cards to wrest back narrative control from me, the GM. So the game starts with, here's your premise, here's the story. For me, it was, you guys are you are going to drive a few hours down the road to this town. You've got to rescue as many survivors and then get to this helicopter drop point where you're going to get picked up. That's it, go. And then the game starts with with the GM 10 candles lit, and I say, these things are true. And then each player in turn gets to speak a truth, any universal truth you want about the world, the land, about you, your character. The only thing you can't do is give them a weakness or explain why the sun isn't working. So you can literally set anything, and you do this each and every time there's a scene change, which is always done when a candle goes out. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. I went and I was really nervous, never played a game like this before, never DM'd a game like this before. Explained that to the guys. They wrote their cards down. Some with more trepidation, had some very experienced RPGers to some complete novices. One of the people around their table, it was their first ever RPG, was 10 Candles.
Jeez.
Blimey.
And there was that real, but it was this fantastic narrative. It was a real story of, because you, as the GM, you just throw the story straight over to the players and you go, tell me one thing that's true about this world. And you go, there's guns on the car. We've got guns in the car. Brilliant. That didn't happen before. Steve, you go, we meet 2 people walking up the road as we're driving into town. Great, that's it, done. And you just set these. Another one. We find a pub and there's a light on inside. Great, okay, you found a pub. There's a light on inside, and we just go from there. And I had no idea what was going to come. No idea what was going to happen. I ended up having these. Them were these like rat-like flying creatures. That had some mind control abilities, and there was a cult in the town. It was just bonkers, but it was so immersive and so like interesting.
Swansea.
It was like what? Sorry,
sounds like Swansea.
Swansea. It was an utterly fantastic game, and we played for 3 hours, just over 3 hours, including like the setup and everything. And you got these brilliant moments where. You have to do a test, and you roll some dice, and you roll as many dice. Your maximum pool is the number of lit dice. You can roll as many of them as you want. Every time you roll a 1, that's removed from the pool until the next scene. And every 6 is a success. Anything that's not a 6 is just a pure failure. And as the game progresses, the GM is going to be rolling dice as well. And you need more 6s than I roll to wrest control. But either way, if you roll 6s and I roll 6s, it's still a success. I just get to narrate what that success looks like. Really good. And then you can just burn one of your cards. And if you burn your card and your card was your virtue and your virtue was that you're resourceful, you have to work in whatever's written on that card into your success story or your failure story, and you get to tell me what happens. It was blinding, and I can't wait to play again.
Wow. So it's fully improv then, basically.
Completely improv. I literally had some names of characters because I knew they were going to go looking for people to survivors, so I knew I needed those. And then I figured you're going into a town, I'll need churches and shops and a couple of road names just in case the NPCs gave them. That's all I had written down on my paper in front of me, just so I had it, like that immediately.
Sounds similar to like Blades in the Dark in that way. You can't prep Blades in the Dark because you don't know what the players are going to do at all. But this one sounds like it's got even more input from the players in that regard.
Yeah, massive. And it swings at the beginning of the game where we speak 10 truths, or one for each candle. When it's one GM and 3 or 4 players, obviously they have more of a say. But as the game swings to there's less candles, my 1 is now 25%. When it's 4 candles, I've got 25% of that narrative control. But also towards the end of the game, when there's less candles lit, I have more dice, which means every time you do a conflict, whether you pass or fail, I tell you what that pass or failure looks like. So I shape more of the story towards the end of it, which is fantastic. And it's a tragic horror immersive RPG. Your characters die at the end of it. There's no other way around it. Your characters die. You're not surviving it. It's not you get on a helicopter just before it takes off. No, you die. But what you're doing is you're telling a story about the last few hours of your character's life and how they find a moment of hope, a moment of relief in what is Armageddon, really. So,
wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. We had these really dramatic moments where we just sat there and a candle, because it's been burning for 3 hours, just goes out. It's run out of wax, run out of wick. So we're talking, we're doing this scene, and a candle just goes out, and you just see that little slither of smoke. And I was like, that candle just went out, didn't it? And they're like, yeah, all right. New scene then, guys. And it's like, oh, no, but we were about to do this. You didn't. You didn't. Okay, we'll speak our truths. We've got 3 truths, and I've got 1 of them. So you can decide. You could go try and work out what you're gonna do in the next scene. It was absolutely brilliant, and I had my new player got really, really into it. They were really nervous about the start of it and really unsure about how to write these cards and like how to role play. But as soon as we started telling a story, they were just in there with both feet and got really, really wrapped up in the story. Really wrapped up. I wouldn't say like they're like deep role playing. There are no voices or anything like that. But their reactions, they were literally. At one point, they found a girl. One of the NPCs they found was this little girl. So I was voicing this girl, and I actually got audible gasps from them when I told them parts of the story, what this girl was saying or doing, and they were like, oh, "No!" Like a genuine emotional reaction to something that I had just made up on the spot. And they reacted to that, and they reacted to that in the story, and it was beautiful.
Well,
so how long did it take? I think it was one session, but you have to do this in one session because you have to do it with a lump. So how long did it take you to complete?
I think by the time, it was like 3 hours 20 minutes.
Okay.
Because like you use standard tea light, and a standard tea light only lasts for about 3 hours. So you start. I start the game. We had got cups of tea, got our drinks down. I had my DM screen, and you do that bit of prep about how we do the game and how we do conflicts. Let's light, and then one of the first things you do is you go, right, let's light 3 candles. Here's an index card each and a pen. Write down a virtue. And then that is, as soon as you light those 3 candles at that point, that is the start of the game. And then you do a bit and you do character creation. Then you light 3 more candles. Then you do a bit more character creation. Then you do 3 more candles, do a bit more character creation, and then you light the final candle, and then the story starts. So the quicker you create your characters, the more time in the story you have. But there's a lot of talk, because you're introducing yourselves to each other, and there's a lot of interaction between the players in the character creation sequence. But yeah, that's it. It takes that long to play because you're limited to when the candles run out.
Okay. I've been wanting to try this for some time, and I think I really want to try it now.
Yes, me too. Sounds really good. It'd be good in the dark, like totally in the dark. All your only source of light are the candles.
And that's how we played it. And it's when as a player burns a card, they're going to use they're going to
literally on the candle.
Yeah. So we got like a Pyrex bowl in the middle of the table, and Andy, you've failed this test. And you really don't want me to narrate what that failure looks like. So you go, right, my top card is my vice, and my vice is I'm an addict. And I'm using an example from the book. And you go, right, okay, so can you use your addict? Can you use the fact that you're an addict to something, anything, in getting out of this situation? As long as you can use the fact that you're an addict in the resolution, in the failure, you can tell me what happens. And you burn that card, and you literally hold it over a candle. It lights up, so you have this moment of where it's really bright and it's really warm, and all the focus is then on you, Andy, and you tell us
as it should be
what happens in that moment, and then we move on to the next scene. And it's very atmospheric, and that atmosphere is and it's artificially created by the fact that there's only light as these 10 rapidly going out candles, and that final candle, you blow it out and you're just sat there in complete darkness, and it's the end of the game and everybody's dead, and it feels really somber, it feels really heavy. It's great.
Well, we'll pick an afternoon or an evening, I suppose, get that done.
Yeah, I have to get it done quickly. But you want somewhere where you can turn the smoke detector off as well. I don't go to the shops and buy index cards as I did, because they've got some sort of plastic on them, so it smells terrible. Just get some normal cardboard. Just get a normal sheet of A4 cardboard and cut it up into index cards. They'll burn faster and won't smell awful. That's my big takeaway.
Top tip
For playing 10 candles.
Well, nice one.
10 candles from Cavalry Games. Strongly recommend it. You can get the PDF for the rules for about, I think, 15 quid. So it's not bad at all. And once you've read it, take some notes, you're off, because you're probably not going to need to refer to it ever again during the game.
Great.
Strongly recommended.
Well, we like light rules, clever games, so...
Yeah, other than some of the finer details about what you write on your cards and how you do conflict or sacrificing yourself. That's it. The book is really useful. It's filled with loads of really great examples. So even if you are a brand new GM, you can pick this up, and it gives you scripted examples of how players have done this for every step of the game. That is really clear. So if you don't need that example, you can just flick a few pages forward. More rules. Great rule book, really well written, really clear, with a great game. Loads of modules at the back. So the one I played was rescue people from, or you could play another one, which I think we might do, which is we're going to be based on a space station next time I play. There's even one in the back of the book, which is you all play as puppies that have been abandoned at the pound when the humans have all gone. So your mission is to escape the pound and try and find some humans, or try and escape them. So there's massive, loads of different modules, loads of different ways you can play this, and loads of skins. You could play it sci-fi, sword and sorcery, play it as animals, whatever. It's great.
Okay, so it's very flexible. Sounds good.
Very, very flexible.
Well, and as if by magic, a Sid appears.
You just need to say,
Yes.
and I'm Sid Gill.
Oh,
And then we can edit that back
and then
in.
you can edit that back in at the start. I forgot. No,
You have to make it really, really obvious you've edited it in. And
Well, somebody
I'm
else should
Sid.
say. I should get Jai to say it, or get a computer voice to say it for me.
We have referenced several times in the episode that it's not here.
No,
so
it's true.
It's just going to confuse everybody now. The YTS kid, I do feel like I should apologise for my lateness, and I feel like I shall be in front of a disciplinary hearing.
Were
with the
you
grown-ups.
playing Tainted Grail?
No,
No,
but I did
okay.
notice somebody else was when I popped onto my PC earlier.
You've been well and truly grassed up, Tudor.
I can never play video games in peace, can I? I can never get away with it and sneak off and do some video game playing, can I?
Nope.
Somebody's going to snitch on you, and it's normally some automated bot somewhere that's telling on you.
So explain yourself, Gil. Why are you late?
Mrs. Gill has decided that she needs a new bathroom. And this has meant that Sid is taking tiles off walls, stripping out old bathroom, and finding a lot of interesting things buried
Like corpses
in walls.
and stuff.
Well, how about a live electrical socket in the shower behind the tiles? That's one thing I
Nice.
found. I found a random gas pipe that made no sense as to where it was going. And that gas pipe is the reason I'm late this evening, because that gas pipe has now been removed by a friendly local plumber.
Oh, that's good. Let's see,
So
we're
my
just
fault.
huffing gas all evening.
So I hope I'm not huffing gas. That would be bad.
That would be bad.
So yes, no, that's what's going on. So there was a bit of an unexpected, great plumber. Randomly found a guy at work, said, "Go try this guy out." Give him a call. Yes, or Sue WhatsApped him. He WhatsApp plumbers now apparently, and WhatsApped him last night and said, "Oh, we've got this problem." He said, "Send me a few pictures." Yeah, no bother. I can do it tomorrow at 5 o'clock. I was like, "What? Yeah, well, yeah. Come on then." And it was fantastic. Couldn't recommend him enough.
Hang on.
Absolutely fantastic guy.
Right. Sue sent him a few pictures and he turns up straight away.
Mate, if a 3/4 inch pipe for gas gets you switched on like that, then frankly, you've got something else going on. But yeah, so no, we now have gas reinstated. It was looking a bit dicey there because of the old imperial metric system. But Screwfix came to the rescue. I was pleased to see that even professional plumbers have to cheese it to Screwfix midway through a job for a fitting. So
It's a quality establishment, Crucifix. I use them all the time.
So yes, so that is the reason for my tardiness. Hopefully the tribunal will find me not guilty and allow me back again. But that's where I've been.
It's glad to have you, Sid. Glad to have you here.
You have missed Rory's chat about 10 candles. Unfortunately.
Oh, I'll have to listen back to it then instead.
Yeah, we if we did realise, we would have delayed that and done that a bit later. But basically, me and Andy now want to play it, so it all sounds good.
Cat's out the bag there for you.
Well, I reckon that somebody, Lewis, I'm looking at you here, needs to have that fire pit stoked up, and we can all sit around it outside. Oh no, that's a big candle. That's too big a candle. I won't
Well,
work
no,
for
you
that, will I?
need 10 tea lights. You could play this
10 tea lights.
outside, but every time the wind blows and blows a candle out,
Somebody dies.
It'll be a very quick game.
change the scene. It could be a very quick game.
Oh, maybe we'll do it inside then.
Yes.
Maybe it's a winter game. Maybe we should do it for Halloween, like you're supposed to.
If we are going to play it, we need to play it soon before the nights start getting lighter. Or we have a really long games day, and then at like 9 o'clock
Play
at
in the
night we
evening.
start playing this.
Why don't we just do it in Andy's cellar? We can all just
We could do
hunker
that.
down in his windowless
In my sex
bunker.
dungeon, yeah.
Yeah.
We could do that. There's no windows in there.
Yeah. Options. Yeah.
Options. And, you know, if we make a mess, it doesn't matter. We can just hose the room down. It's lined with plastic.
Jesus Christ.
I don't enjoy RPGs that much, to be honest with you.
It is not lined with plastic. I'm just going to make that very clear right now. Before I get put on another list.
Andy's murder room. That's what
Right.
we call it.
Moving on.
I don't know which is worse. I don't know which is worse. Yes, move on quickly, Andy. Quickly,
Move on
change the
quickly.
subject. Pick a game to talk about. Tell us what you've played.
Well, speaking of crimes or alleged crimes that I may or may not have committed,
Excellent segue
I have
there.
been playing. I thought so.
No one's seen John for some time, by the way.
Turns out it's quite easy. Anyway, I have been playing along with my housemate, MicroMacro Crime City. And to be fair, it was Laura's idea that we played this. She's had her eye on it for quite a long time. And she bought it, I don't know, before Christmas, I think. And every now and again, we've sat down and played it. And it is unlike anything I've ever played before, really. Or at least board game-wise. It's probably most like Where's Wally or Willy or whatever his name is. Derek
Wally.
Or something. Wally.
Where's Derek?
I don't know. Where's Wally? Oh, it's Waldo, isn't it, in America?
Yeah.
That's right. Where's Wally? But the idea is that you've got this whacking great A0 or A-1, whatever it is, piece of paper. It's bloody huge. And it's got this sort of huge cartoon city, funnily enough, on it. And there's all people running around it in various poses and doing various things. There's all kind of, the daily life of the denizens of our city going on. And you play the part of a detective. And it's a cooperative game for as many players as you like. I can't imagine it working well with more than 3 or 4, though, because you're just getting each other's way, because you're all sort of crowded around the same map. And the idea is there's about 15 sets of cards, and each set of cards is a mystery. So you're playing as a detective, and you help try to solve the crime. And what you do by trying to do this is each card is kind of a puzzle or a thing to find on the map. So it might say, Mr. Cat. That is genuinely a character in the game. Mr. Cat has lost his hat, or was walking through the park. Can you find Mr. Cat? It'll give you an idea of where they might be on the map, like the northwest part of the city, and you basically just got to hunt around on here, like Where's Wally, to try and find them. And then bang, there you go. And then you draw the next card when you found them. It says, right, Mr. Cat was doing this. Can you find out why he was in the park, for example? And you have got to basically trace him back, and then all the way through the city, there are instances of the same character in various places. So like you'll kind of retrace their steps and you'll find them like breadcrumbs along a trail, and they might lead back to, say, their home or the pub or a flower shop because they were buying flowers for their partner or whatever. And there's all these sort of questions that go along, and then ultimately it gets more sinister. Why were they found dead, or what's the reason for the murderer wanting to do the crime or whatever, and you end up tracing back the murderer, say, through various stages of their nefarious plot as well. And that's about it. And there's about 15 of these things in each box. There's 3 boxes of it now. So there's Crime City, then there's Full House, and I think there's All In is the 3rd one. They are apparently making a 4th, and this is by Pegasus Pegasus Print. And apparently, allegedly, the 4th one will do something like what the Century Games did, and you can combine all the games together to make one sort of super map, apparently. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where you'd play this. Since we're in a warehouse, these things are so big. You'd put all 4 of them out. Honestly, it would be like the size of a football pitch. But it's each little mystery takes, I don't know, 10, maybe 15 minutes. They're really not long, and they vary in sort of complexity a bit and size, depending on the packs of cards. And it gives you a little rating on each set, like 1 to 5 stars, I think it is. And obviously it's a cooperative, so you each looking for the same things. And it's really good fun. I must say, Laura and I have really enjoyed it. We haven't quite finished Crime City yet. But once we do, I can pass it on, because there is almost zero replayability. Because once you've solved it, that's it. You'll know the answer to each of the mysteries.
Okay.
Unless you've got a really bad memory.
And it works well with just 2 players then?
Yeah, it works really well with 2 players, because you can get around the board, and you can each look at it from a different side or move to look different things. So yeah, for 2 players, it's perfect. I'd say it's probably the best player count, maybe 3, but any more than that, you'd start to get crowded around the table.
It's like the old exit boxes. I found those exit boxes were the real bugger. In theory, you can play with as many people as you can get around the table, but you're looking at tiny little pieces of card trying to get the clues, and one person gets it before like everyone else has had a chance to look at it, in my experience. So, but with that, we've got a bigger piece of paper, so you can all crowd around it a bit better, can't you?
There's a bit more room, so if you've got a big table, you can all sort of crowd around it and see what's going on, but ultimately one person will probably be faster than everybody else. because their eyes work or whatever. Because, I mean, these drawings are quite small, so there is a magnifying glass provided. So if you're getting old and you've got milk bottles on your face, then you might need assistance, optical assistance.
Feel attacked.
Whatever. My eyes work. I don't care.
I'm confused.
Oh,
I'm not seeing what the game is.
It's a puzzle. That's all it is. It's not a game in the sort of traditional sense of rolling dice or drawing cards. It's just a sort of cooperative puzzle game. That's all it is.
So, but okay, I am being thick. I think I'm being thick. The viewers will be screaming at their podcast right now. Viewers? You don't have viewers. What am I doing? I don't even know what I'm talking about. I should have shut up now. Somebody mute my mic. No, because what you've just described to me just sounds like a basically Find Wally. With a story attached between the Wallies. So what happens if you find the wrong Wally first? So what happens if you find a Wally that's like 2 or 3 cards down the story? How do you know you found the wrong Wally?
It kind of tells you where to start, so you get a reasonably good idea. But the sort of breadcrumbs are sufficiently far enough spaced that it's quite difficult to start in the wrong place.
Right. Okay. So it just requires a bit of player discipline then, rather than
a little.
You could do it. You could bust it by going to the wrong. Like if it said go to the northwest corner, you could be an arse and go to the southwest corner and find the wrong Wally and try and break the game.
Generally, the puzzles are reasonably self-contained to an area of the map, although some of them do spread out quite a long way. I mean, it's huge. It's genuinely a huge map. But there's also generally for most of them is like an image of the thing you're looking for, which helps. So you know roughly where to look and what to look for. Although there is the case where I've started looking, because I'm now a slightly more experienced player, I've started looking around the map, and during looking for certain things, I find other things that are completely unconnected to the case we're on. We're like, should be noting that for later.
I bet you've got a little notebook, haven't you?
No.
Just jotting down stuff in it, like little reminders going, okay, I saw a guy wearing a fake nose in bet you've quadranted the map. You're the kind of guy.
It's already got references on it. So it's got A's and A1 and M1 and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's not a competitive game. It's a cooperative game. It's a bit of fun. It's quite light-hearted, and to be fair, it's really, really good.
Yeah,
that's another one I want to play. Well, I want to play this for some time actually, but now you really want me. I really want to play it.
Well, you can borrow it after we finish with it, mate.
What age is it targeted at? Because it sounds the kind of thing that I reckon, throw a couple of kids at it, they could have some good time with it. But what are the but it could be quite dark, I can imagine, if they're mysteries or murders or something like that.
Yes, there are. I think the later games do definitely warn you, but I think there's a couple of warnings, if I remember rightly. This. I think they've come under a little bit of flack for the first one anyway, because there's a couple of characters who do get stabbed, and I think there's one with a lady in it.
Ow.
A friendly lady. Yes, courtesan. A friendly lady.
A lady of negotiable virtue.
That's it, yes.
I don't know these big words you're using. I'm not going to be allowed to use the word that I know.
There are some, not all of them, there are some that are more adult than others, for example. So yes. I mean, it's not graphic, you don't actually see the acts happening, it's just a cartoon representation. There's like a corpse with, the crosses on the eyes. That's basically as bad as it gets. So whilst the subject might be slightly more adult, it is still a cartoon, it's no worse than watching Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, well, yeah, nobody watches Bugs Bunny these days, though, do they?
Well, no. But that's it. So as long as the kids are either briefed or don't care, they'll be fine. And they've got, an adult with them to try and select the correct ones, then I'm sure they'll be fine. There's nothing out there I don't think there's anything particularly outrageous.
Cool. Is this one that I've seen a few people colour in the
yes,
the city
probably.
as well?
Yeah, you can. So once you finish with it, you could just colour it in. It's a massive colouring in project. I mean, it's genuinely about more than a square metre of paper. It's huge.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's massive. Yeah, absolutely massive.
So could you, if you were playing it, if I played this in a pub, say, I wouldn't have that big a table. Could I fold up the paper to just have the quadrant on that I needed for that part of the story? Or do I need to have the whole, do I need to unfold the whole thing? You kind of
need the whole thing, because some of the stories are quite self-contained, but because you don't know where on the map it's going to be.
So you need a lot of space to do this.
Oh,
I mean, it'll fit on a dining
I think
table.
Rory's got a plan there. He's got a search pattern concept here that could be employed. If you folded it like an OS map
Yeah.
and did like a little A4 chunk at a time, you could just eliminate whole chunks in a proper systematic pattern.
No, you could. Well, for one particular card, but then you get the next card, and it's like, oh, where did they come from? You're like, well, no, you've got to search the whole map, backtrack, and I mean, it's literally this huge.
I'm thinking now that I take this to a pub with some blue tack and put it on a wall or window. And then we all
What
stand
you need
around
is
it
pins with
a pint.
red tape. That's what you need.
Exactly.
Pins with
That's
red
what I
ribbon.
want to do. That's how I want to play this game.
It would work because you actually get little sort of glass or plastic beads that you can stick on each of the objectives. So once you found it, you just put it down so you know where to look. Just as a little paper trail, basically. They serve no other functional purpose other than to look pretty and just say, oh, it's there. You know, if you need to go back, which you never really do, but it feels good. It's nice. Right. So yeah, definitely worth playing. So we're probably gonna get the next two and hopefully the fourth as and when it comes out, and see how it all combines. And then we've got a massive colouring in project. So yeah, that's MicroMacro from Pegasus Print, and I think it's about depending on where you go, you can get it from about between 15 and 20 quid, depending on.
Oh, that's good money too.
Oh yeah, it's not right. It's not expensive. Well, it's literally just a small deck of cards basically and a map.
Question for you: why is it Pegasus Print and not Pegasus Spiel?
Because it's printed, I guess.
Is it like a subdivision of Pegasus Spiel?
I don't know, but it is Pegasus Spiel. It's got the horse, so it's basically the same company.
The Pegasus is not a horse, is it?
Pegasus is a horse, yes.
But Pegasus isn't a horse. Pegasus is a flying horse.
Well, yes, but it's still.
But it's not. It's not a horse. Pegasus is a Pegasus.
Shut up.
Real proper topics. That's what we talk about, isn't it?
Yeah.
The distinction betwing a horse and a Pegasus.
Gritty stuff.
It's an equine. Shush.
Wasn't there only one Pegasus?
There was traditionally there's only one Pegasus, but
yes, it's a name rather than a breed, isn't it?
But in I think in common mythology literature now, they're now called Pegatrix. Pegatrix is the species of flying horses, with Pegasus being an individual, as opposed to Pegasus. Who used to ride Pegasus? Was it?
It wasn't Zeus. Was it Apollo?
Was it Hercules?
It's Hercules. Yes,
it was Hercules.
It's Hercules. Yes. It's Hercules.
Apollo had his own shoes, didn't he? He had the wings.
Apollo had the chariot
that's Hermes.
because he went across the sky.
Was that Hermes?
Hermes had the wing shoes.
Boo-boos. Apollo rode the chariot across the sky because it was the sun, because he took it over
If it's the same as the Clash of the Titans films, it's the son of Zeus. I can't remember his name.
Hercules.
That's
Hercules.
No, it's not Hercules. It's not Hercules. It's not Hercules.
Heracles?
It's the other one. No, Heracles is a different pronunciation of it. It's the other one.
It is Hercules.
Perseus. It's Perseus wrote Pegasus.
Pegasus was in the Hercules Disney film.
He was, yeah.
Mate, we're not going to cite Disney as a source of authority on what.
Do you know what? I think you might be right. I think it was because Perseus got the sword and the shield from Minerva and.
Just like earlier
Athena.
said, there are going to be people screaming. We were suddenly walking across the park, listening to our podcast. It's Perseus, you pellets!
But you know what I really like about the fact that we have this discussion is nobody has yet cheated and Googled it.
I'm doing it now.
I reckon Andy's doing it now. Andy's going to kill the argument by Googling it.
Well, I'm trying to. Sired by, weirdly, Poseidon. Greek obscene to Zeus, something blah blah blah, Olympus, blah blah blah, Bellerophon, blah 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 blah. As Perseus was beheading.
Yeah,
I think Steve might be right here.
Perseus.
I don't like this.
Look how begrudgingly
Pegasus was gifted to Perseus with the sword and the shield.
Move on.
Yeah.
Fine, it was Perseus. Stupid Disney.
Bookmark that. Andy is wrong. So that the listeners who go straight
Andy was misinformed by Disney. I mean, the fact that he's done ancient Greek and Latin at school is neither here nor there. But anyway, moving on.
Oh, I think we should dip into the mailbag, boys.
I think we should.
There's an interesting question here from Andrew Lewis.
Yes.
Who's that?
Who's that? Is that the guy that got Pegasus wrong?
I doesn't know. That's someone who doesn't know his history. Let's. I don't think we should trust him. Yes, this was actually based on a discussion we had a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah.
On our private chat, what we do now and again, and it concerns the size of board games. Are board games getting too big? And I think this was on the back of our Frostpunk sort of plan that fell out, the arse fell out of that pretty quickly. But anyway, are board games getting too big? Because, table space seems to be getting consumed by more and more sort of bigger and fatter games. And I speak of things like Weather Machine, because that ain't small.
Yeah.
Frostpunk, Jesus, that's huge. Yeah. Anything by Awaken Realms, Simon, all of these games just seem to be taking up more and more and more table space.
We had this conversation after I bought Woodcraft round to yours. And Woodcraft takes up a lot of space. And then, Sid, you'll remember when we played Arc Nova, that takes up a lot of space. And trying to get 4 people around the board to play those games, you actually need a large table for a game that doesn't feel like it should take up that much space.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree. We don't mention it very often, but I've got a Geek and Son gaming table. And I've now had it about 6 years. So I've had it quite a long time. And we bought it based on the space we had in the house we were renting at the time. We got it as the biggest table to fit in that room at the time, and it's in our current kitchen, and you've all played on it. You couldn't really go much bigger in that kitchen.
No.
True.
So, of course, you lose a bit of space. So you lose, 15 centimetres around each edge, which is the lip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm now finding it's a struggle to fit board games into that recess.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that being a problem even 4 years ago.
No.
I remember, you get a board game out now and you start laying out the board and you start laying out player boards. And you're like, going, oh crap, where the player board's going to go?
Yeah.
And
I think even if you didn't play inside the well, the Geek and Son well, if you just played on top and you've got a very decent sized dining table that you could comfortably pit 6 people around for a Christmas roast dinner. 6 people,
which we have done,
which you will do. And
we've actually fitted 8 round it.
You could fit 6 to 8 people around that for a dinner, but you can't fit 4 people around it to play a board game comfortably. And that's where that's where I can keep some of my tokens and my cards in the built-in slots and everything. It really does. It annoys me. It gets to a point where it actually annoys me. This game is too big. It's needlessly big. The box is bigger than it needs to be. The box is only that big because the board's that big. It doesn't need to be either of those things, which means everything. It'd be easy to put literally easy to put on the table, literally easier to store the thing on my game shelf.
So what's underpinning this trend then? Is it the one-upmanship that everybody seems to be?
Well, this is kind of the underpinning of my
on?
question, Sid. Well, very astute. That's pretty much what I'm driving at. What is causing it and why?
My immediate reaction to when you ask the question is it's a bit like shouting or speaking in a loud room. That you have to be louder than the person. You think you have to be louder than the person next to you in order to be heard. Whereas all that happens is the next person next to you gets louder, and then the one next to them gets louder, and the whole room suddenly is deafening. And it kind of feels like we've headed towards that from what you guys are describing. And it almost needs like somebody to pop in with like a ridiculously small game or something that's got so much packed into it that suddenly we can reset back towards normal again.
Seven Wonders Duel.
I call it the Kickstarterification.
Kickstarterification. Nice.
I think can we put snowflakes in there as well, please, Steve? The Kickstarter snowflakeation. It's for all those people who goes that icon's too small. How can I read that from 3 foot away? Why the fuck are you 3 foot away from the board game you're playing, moron?
Wow. Rory channeling his inner Lewis there.
You might have touched a nerve there.
Sorry, carry on. Yeah.
But I think that I call it the Kickstarterification. It's this idea, and I think it is what Sid's saying. It's this idea that it's not just a case of you've got to sell the game now. The game's going to be bigger and better than the previous one. It's got to have token trays. It's got to have miniatures. It's got to, I've got the last two Eric Klang Simon games. So you've got Rising Sun and Ankh. And I've got the board with them. I've just got the board that came with the game. You can actually buy playmats for them, which make it even bigger. So, and people are buying playmats for games. We were going to mention Journeys in Middle-earth we were thinking of doing today, but we've run out of time. You can buy a playmat for that to extend that game even more. There is this kind of add-on blinginess that comes with the games, and I think that's what increases the size of them, and it increases. It's to do with complexity a little bit as well. I mean, you mentioned Weather Machine, Andy. I think Weather Machine could have been smaller.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful drawn board, and you've got to give old Tool his due for the amazing artwork and graphic design on that thing. But there is a point where you're looking at that thinking there's a lot of real estate board wise. It's being used by just artwork.
Yeah, it's a lot of empty space. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it could be smaller.
I think. I mean, it's a 6-panel board, but I reckon you could probably squeeze it into 4.
Would it be less of a game if you did?
No. I don't think so. It'd be less impressive, well, visually, but it'd still have the same content.
But then the box is quite big as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I was thinking the box is quite big. The box is bigger, which means it takes more space on the shelf. So, in this idea of going into a brick and mortar game store, that shelf that game is easier to spot. It stands out more because it's bigger.
That's quite a common thing, isn't it? Like they say, if you look at video games and DVDs, the reason they're bigger than they need to be. They could have been in a CD dual case, but they're not. They're taller, and that has always been said that's because that's what can stand out on the shelf when VHS videos are around.
Yeah,
going back now, but it does apply to board games because that's where a lot of people explain why Splendor, which is has been shown to fit in almost a matchbox. Is in a game box size it is, so it can be seen on the shelf. It's purely marketing at that point.
Which for me always seems a little bit counter. I understand that you want to have that shelf space, but I think a lot more retail is done, and absolutely no statistics behind this broad sweeping comment at all, that surely more retail happens online now than in gaming stores. I would think. But equally,
but it's something. But if you're in a gaming cafe or you're passing by a stall at an expo or a conference, you got this presence with a big box. It's going to pull you in, no matter, even if you don't interested in what it is, for the fact you can see it. Whereas one of those little, the mint box sized games.
Yeah,
I forgot the name of the things now, but
mint tins.
Thank you. Sized games aren't going to have the presence unless you've got a whole load of placards and boards and everything else shouting its name.
Whacking great arrow going, play this.
Yeah, play this.
Yeah.
So I kind of get that, but I think where I was thinking about is this losing people to the games? So the fact that board games are getting big, we're, I would think, fairly lucky in that we have space or areas we can go to where we can play a large game on a table without, feeling squashed up. But, you're in the middle of, I don't know, a London flat that costs more than all our houses combined. Are you going to have space to run a big game? What do you do then?
It does. I think it does change it. Using the examples I've mentioned, like Ark Nova and Woodcraft that I've got, if I'm going around, depending on where I'm going to play a game, I may not be able to take them because I know I haven't got space.
Yeah.
I went around to my friend Chris's house. We played Ark Nova on his sensible oval 4-seater dining table. And we were all perched at corners of it with our little boards. And the resources had to be on a chair next to me. We didn't have space.
Wow.
So next time I go to Chris's, we're not playing Ark Nova or Woodcraft because we did that as well. It's too much trouble to try and fit it on the table. So we'll play something that is physically smaller. But it's a shame because those games are not getting played. That we all enjoy them. We'd all want to play them again, but we're playing at Chris's house. Can't play those games on his table.
Don't try and play Frostpunk with him then, because you've seen the size of my table, and that's not small. Frostpunk takes up most of it. I'm not exaggerating. It is ridiculous.
That concerns me because I've got Frostpunk. I haven't taken it out of the box yet.
It will not fit in your table.
It'll never fit.
It won't. It will not fit on your table.
You'll just have to annex your breakfast bar, boss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I find them already doing that. I find like you set up the game and then there might be like other bits, and you find like putting them on a chair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a poor example, but we mentioned Kingdom Death Monster a couple of episodes back. That's taken up a chair and part of the breakfast bar because the box has got to go somewhere, and it's like, well, we don't need everything for each stage, so everything goes in the box and comes back out. And the board for that, the main combat board, it does take up the entire table. And since the character token, the character little boards have got to be on the corner, and you hope that the fight doesn't actually extend to the corner of the board then.
Yes.
So it's going to move their stuff.
Yes. Andy, your player characters in the way. Get him out of the way.
I mean,
that's all right. If I kill them off, it won't matter.
I mean, some games are always going to take up a lot of space regardless. Twilight Imperium, for instance, that is a table hog and always has been.
Yeah.
And I think you'd struggle to play that on my table, but we played it on Sid's, and even then we were on the edge, weren't we, Sid?
We nearly had to extend.
Yeah,
But
we
I
had to put like
think
your
that's
pieces
okay.
to one side.
That's okay when you're doing those. It's like an event game. I'm thinking like back when I used to play, say, Warhammer or 40k. If I'm playing a 3,000 point game of Warhammer, that takes up a big table, but that's going to take up an afternoon, and that is an event. Big games, to me, mean that if it takes up a physically large amount of time, space, it will also take up a large amount of time, and it's worth putting it all out. It's worth getting it all onto the table because it's a real event game. But some of these games, they're not event games; they're just freaking big. And it does frustrate me because it limits the places I can play them. It makes it frustrating to actually get them to the table. And it shouldn't be. You can have all your fancy inserts of choice awards and stuff like that. But if I've got to keep that insert on a chair next to me as opposed to on the table where it belongs next to the board, well, it's too much.
Right then. So that's a yes.
Yes, board games are getting too big.
Yes.
And we don't like it.
No.
What would you say the threshold dimensions are?
It depends how big your table is.
No, but at what point? Right, you go, right, I need this much space for my player board and my maybe token, and then I need this much space for the board. What is the maximum
It's
threshold?
just like a GCSE maths problem where X is the size of the board, Y is the size of the table, and it's like 3X plus Y. You are asking this question to a physicist and two engineers, Rory.
Right.
So you're going to be here a while.
I'm asking this to a physicist and two engineers from a man who currently doesn't have a gaming table in his house. So if I wanted to buy a table that does the job as a dining table and can be used as a gaming table for a big game, what is the minimum size table I need?
7 foot by 1.1 meters. My
7 foot is a ridiculous size for a table.
Just stop for a minute. He makes metric and imperial in the same sentence.
I did,
7 foot by 1.1 meters. No, we're not having that. Pick one, not both.
That's because he's the physicist and not the engineer.
No,
That's how you did it, please, mate.
Well, the reason I've done that is because
we crashed into Mars because of this kind of shit.
I know. It's because my table's made of scaffy boards, which are 22 centimeters wide, but 7 feet long. They've been cut deliberately to 7 feet, so they have mixed the units. It's 5 boards at 21 centimeters each wide. And 7 feet long. So it is.
Don't worry, it's quite normal. I remember being like part of a job when I was doing mechanical design and wanted to buy standard materials so we didn't have to make anything from scratch. And phoned up the supplier and see what they had in stock. Oh, do you have any 1 inch by 1 inch angle ironing? Oh, sorry, sir. We no longer do imperial measurements. Oh, what have you got in stock then? 25.4 centimetres by 25.4 centimetres.
That's like a story my mum used to say when I was younger. They used to go down the timber yard and you get a metre of 3x2. Genuinely, you get a metre of 3 inch by 2 inch board.
And this is
ridiculous.
why the British system of measurement is broken.
It is. It's bullshit.
Why we crash into Mars.
But anyway, I would say... Yes. Let's move on. Phil Fennerty has asked, is there a board game which you've encountered which comes close to replicating the feeling of a traditional RPG? And I can see Steve started to twitch now. There are plenty of narrative-driven combat encounter games out there, but do any of them feel like playing D&D or Traveller or any of the Free League, or are we still some way off that yet? Now, I have a few suggestions, but I'm going to let Steve explain what he thinks why a board game and an RPG shall never, ever, ever meet.
I've classed this, and I don't have mentioned this, guys, to you before, is can you snog the dragon?
No, Steve, you've never said those words to me before.
Exactly. The whole point of an RPG and what makes it an RPG and different from a board game is that complete openness. It's the whole point of can you do something which is way out of, and usually one player will use it, it's often John, which is beyond what any normal person would plan for. Someone will come up with an inventive idea or something left field or something crazy, something out of the box, and a board game can't cope with that. So a board game cannot allow for that. It needs that referee, that GM. So yes, there is a point where I do agree with Phil in this regard. We are way off because I don't think anything will ever do that part of it.
No.
However, I think there are several games that try their best and don't come far off it.
I would agree.
Really?
Yes.
Intriguing.
Oh, yeah, very much so. My suggestions would be Tainted Grail,
Yep.
City of Kings.
Okay.
Okay.
There's less R in that, but there's definitely P and G.
P and G, yeah.
Play game. I should hope so.
Yeah, quiet in the back.
Perseus, Andy, Perseus.
And possibly even Kingdom Death Monster.
Yes. What I was going to say, I think there's lots of games that try and meet aspects of RPGs and everything gets something slightly different of it. And I would say there are several different kinds of games which meet that. So your storytelling narrative book kind of game, which is your choose your own adventure with a board. So the narrative style game like Tainted Grail and Sleeping Gods.
Oh
yeah.
That game which has got like a book the size of a telephone directory, which lists all the different options and things you can do. That gets the narrative side and often does the combat as well. It's relatively simple combat, but there's a combat in them. Then I think you've got the ones that do the combat side of it. So you say we play D&D 5e. D&D 5e is very much a combat focused RPG. And I think things like Oathsworn and Kingdom Death Monster, and even some of the like FFG, like Hero Quest style games like Descent, meet a lot of that. I just don't think everything has managed to meld the two together.
No,
and nor should it, in my opinion. Nor should it, because it's exactly what we said about snogging dragons. Right, that's what an RPG is for. It's not meant to be, for me anyway. If I'm playing a board game, I want some more rules. I want some more definitive end point. An RPG can last years. I don't want a board game that I have to, come back to after I've had 6 hours at it already. That's not what I want to do. Or the week after, or the week after that, or the week after that. No. An RPG it's a different thing for me. It shouldn't be. We don't need to make everything the same. It's okay for RPGs to exist. It's okay for board games to exist. We don't need to mash everything together in some
homogenized paste.
Homogenized shit show.
No, I agree, Sid. I agree, because I think one of the beauty about the board game is that it is a defined framework in which you operate. There are some restrictions on what you do, and it's how you work within those restrictions that makes you good at that game. There are rules for a reason, whereas an RPG, whilst there are rules, there's a lot more free form, as Steve suggests. And I think they're both good things. And one shall never meet the other because they are inherently incompatible.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, some of the mechanics, some of the tenets of each one can track across. I mean, board games are probably fed into RPGs in terms of some of the rules and some of the mechanics that are being played through. But likewise, as you say, things of the narrative storytelling has drifted across. But even then, it's not a free-form narrative. It still has structure. I mean, it's like a video RPG. A video game RPG isn't an RPG in the truest sense of the word because it still has defined outcomes. You can still go through a flowchart of the choices of voice dialogue or whatever you do, which will still lead to a deterministic answer.
Yes.
A true RPG should not lead
you
to a
can
deterministic
you
answer.
can never leave the PC flabbergasted at your crazy result, your crazy suggestion. No, it's true.
So yeah, we're a long way away, and I'm happy the way we are. That's my answer to Phil.
Never the twain shall meet.
I think that'll do us for today. Thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you enjoyed this, please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, or anywhere else on the internet. Just look for Polyhedron Collider or go to Board Game Geek Guild 2726. And until next time, happy gaming.
Tatty bye.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.